is not only engaged in naked and despicable political retribution against career prosecutors, but he's also making Washington, D.C. a demonstrably less safe place. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, my professional home for decades, the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia, that is the Department of Justice field office that does all of the prosecuting in our nation's capital. We prosecute all of the federal cases. We prosecute all of the local cases. We do it all. That office is now being headed up by a Trump appointee, a guy named Ed Martin, an election denier, someone who was involved in organizing the Stop the Steal campaign. This is a guy who has never spent 1 minute of his professional career prosecuting cases, not so much as a traffic ticket. And what Ed Martin has just done is not only despicable, this represents not only the most naked and transparent kind of political retribution against career prosecutors, but it really does present a danger, a public safety danger to the people of DC, people that I served for decades. Let's start with the new reporting. This from the New York Times: prosecutors in Washington demoted in retribution push by Trump ally. Ed Martin, the acting U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia, took the action against federal prosecutors who had been involved in January 6th cases. And that article begins: several top prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. were demoted on Friday to low-level positions handling minor crimes, another step in a campaign of retribution against Justice Department officials perceived as enemies by the Trump administration. Those demoted, including one prosecutor who had overseen all cases arising from the events of January 6, 2021, and at least two who had worked on the trials of members of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers militia, according to people with knowledge of the moves who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. The abrupt personnel changes announced in a series of emails sent by Ed Martin, the interim U.S. attorney in Washington, were the latest upheavals in one of the country's most important federal prosecutors' offices. Mr. Martin's internal onslaught has been seen by prosecutors in the office as a brazen effort to punish, humble, and harness its employees at the behest of the White House. Demeaning demotions have been a favored tactic employed by President Trump's political appointees to force career prosecutors to quit. Among those being reassigned was John Crabb Jr., a supervisor whose experience in the office had earned him some of the toughest assignments in recent years, the people familiar with the moves said. Those included the criminal trial of Roger Stone, one of Mr. Trump's advisors, the prosecution of Michael Flynn, a former national security advisor, and all conspiracy cases arising from the Capitol attack on January 6th, including those that involved the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Mr. Crabb also worked as the lead prosecutor in the case of a Libyan man convicted of terrorism charges stemming from the attack on the U.S. mission in Benghazi in 2012. Another prosecutor who was reassigned was Greg Rosen, who had overseen all January 6th related cases as the chief of what was known as the Capitol Siege Section. The steps taken to give Mr. Crabb and Mr. Rosen new jobs well below their formal ranks came less than a month after Mr. Martin oversaw the dismissal of more than a dozen newly hired prosecutors who worked on January 6th cases. Mr. Martin has also threatened Democratic politicians with investigations related to their public statements about his political allies, including Elon Musk. Last week, the highly regarded head of the office's criminal division, Denise Chung, resigned after she declined a request from Mr. Martin and other Justice Department officials to freeze the assets of a government contractor, saying she had insufficient evidence to do so. Her position, a vital slot responsible for addressing crime in the nation's capital, has remained unfilled, leaving prosecutors in the already demoralized office without clear leadership, according to a person with knowledge of the situation. Mr. Trump has nominated Mr. Martin, who had no previous prosecutorial experience and little interaction with the nonpartisan career prosecutors who work for him, as the permanent U.S. Attorney in Washington. His confirmation hearing has yet to be scheduled. Another senior prosecutor, Catherine Rakosi, was demoted from working on federal cases to local cases in Superior Court. Ms. Rakosi was part of a team that secured sedition convictions arising from January 6th against Stuart Rhodes, the leader of the Oath Keepers, and one of his lieutenants. You know, friends, these are my former colleagues at the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia. I worked with some of them for years, indeed decades. Guys like John Crabb, Denise Chung, Kate Rakosi. Hell, I tried Kate Rakosi's first murder case with her when I was chief of the homicide section and she was a junior member of my team, the homicide section at the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. And let me tell you, point blank, Ed Martin doesn't know this, these people are some of the best, most committed, dedicated, honest, ethical, public servants you will ever meet. And Ed Martin is demoting them because they had the temerity of being assigned J6 cases by their supervisors, investigating those J6 cases in the grand jury, obtaining criminal indictments of the J6 defendants, taking those defendants to trial and convicting them for crimes we all saw with our own damn eyes. And now they're being punished for nakedly political reasons. This can't stand, friends. This can't stand. You know, Trump and Ed Martin and all of the flunkies and lapdogs and sycophants that Donald Trump is surrounding himself with presently might be feeling themselves at the moment, but they will be held to account. They must be held to account because the rule of law matters and the Constitution matters and justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.